All right, calling to order the Tuesday, October 25th Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. It is now 6:06 p.m. I'm Darian Martin, and I will be the chair presiding over this meeting. Let's go ahead and move on to the silent meditation and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Madam Clerk, can I please have the roll call?
Roll call. Chair Martin.
Present.
Vice Chair Perella.
Here.
Member Erbum.
Present.
Member Nickerson.
Here.
Member Lightfoot Ward. Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Christy Alou, Village Manager, and Joseph Geller, Attorney, is running a little late.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion. Well, I'll second, Madam Chair.
Awesome. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, moving on to subsection E, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 13th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Committee meeting?
I'll move for approval, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to subsection F, which is good and welfare. At this point, anyone in the audience, if you have anything to say concerning the items on the agenda, now will be the time that you can come up and speak freely for 3 minutes. The only rule is that you have to state your name and address for the record. Is there anyone that would like to come up? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to subsection G. G1, 150 Northeast 88th Street, Site Plan Review Addition. Can I have the applicant and city staff approach the podiums, please? Yes. Well, I guess they call it city staff. City staff. Oh, you can get to this podium, please. And when you get to the podium, you can state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Juan Calero, 150 Northeast 88th Street.
Nice to meet you, Ms. Calero. We'll start with Camila, if you can give us what the recommendations are.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, committee members. This application is for the site plan review for the construction of a 1,400 square foot addition to the existing residence that is 1,600 square feet with the address at 150 Northeast 88th Street. The addition consists of a 2-car garage, a new master suite, and a covered rear terrace. And it complies with the zoning requirements and site development standards for Zone 3. The proposed plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the intent of the use in the district in which it is located, again, Zone 3, and the approval of site plan will not have an adverse impact to the village. The design of the addition is consistent with the architecture and details of the existing house, and it is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood in scale, composition, and materials. The applicant shows good cause with the proposal of the construction of the new residence, and therefore, staff recommends approval for this site plan application.
Okay, thank you so much. First, we'll open up comments to anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment about this item. Is there anyone that would like to step up to the podium? All right, hearing none, I'll close it off to the attendees and open it up to the council members. Does anyone have a comment or question concerning this item?
I'll just say I'm glad.
G1. Oh, Vice Mayor?
I'll just say I'm glad someone's building a garage instead of converting one.
That is a departure, for sure.
May I also
Go
note
ahead.
something in addition? Sorry.
Sure.
If you look at the site plan, the applicant is also, in order to comply with the zoning requirements, they're removing part of the pavement in the front yard because in order to access the 2-car garage, they're still complying with the width of the driveway approaches. However, the paved area inside the front yard was exceeding 1/3, which is the maximum that is permitted. And so they're removing part of the walkway that was in the front yard in order to accommodate what they would like to add in order to access the 2-car garage. So
Okay.
it's in compliance with the zoning code. Thank you.
Any other comments from the council concerning item G1? All right, do I have a motion to accept staff's recommendation? Do I have a second? All right, Madam Clerk, do we need a roll call on this? Okay.
Roll call. Member Lightfoot Ward. Member Nickerson,
Yes.
Member Erbaum,
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella,
Yes.
Chair Martin.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay,
They would
awesome.
need to come to the next hearing, which I would be in touch with you guys regarding that.
Awesome, congratulations.
Thank you.
The plans look great.
Thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a beautiful house.
I know. Awesome. So moving on to item G2, do we have the applicant for 160 Northeast 89th Street here as of yet? No? Okay, so I'll just go ahead and skip on to item G3. If we are able to get through that before they arrive, then I don't know. We'll see what happens, but hopefully they get here before we're done. So G3 is staff reports for fences in the front yard. Just in a nutshell, I know that you guys remember the last planning and zoning meeting. We spoke about the frequency within which we've been seeing variance requests for fencing in the front yard. So I just wanted to have staff just take a comprehensive look and give us their recommendations. So Camila?
Yes, thank you. As was discussed at the last committee meeting, we evaluated the code and the previous code, and as you can see in the staff report, we've compiled information that shows how the vision for the village is to maintain open front yards, as was stated and was discussed in a previous meeting. And as such, residents are not permitted to construct fences in the front yard, except for masonry or coral rock walls via the process of variance so that the design can be vetted in a public hearing. There have been previous applications there have been several, numerous, which is why this this item has come up, in which some residents wish to enclose their front yard, some due to specific circumstances, such as the location of their main residence, but or for a safety barrier for their children, for example. However, we've also noted that most houses do have a rear yard for this very purpose, and moving forward, staff recommends that the only application proposed for the front yard that we'll recommend approval for is for a coral rock or masonry wall, as was in the previous code before the adoption of the form-based code. That element was carried over, so that is our recommendation, to continue with that, and therefore any other fence with any other material, or 4 feet with a 4-foot height. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, I'm sorry. Any other proposal with any other material, we recommend that we will not be supporting. They are still permitted to come to apply for a variance and speak before the council and express their hardships and their reasoning. But as staff reviewing the applications, we recommend that moving forward, approval will not be given for these fences unless directed otherwise, or if you feel otherwise. Our other recommendations were that you prohibit completely the fences in the front yard, including walls. Of course, as you said, residents can always apply for a variance, but the recommendation would not be favorable, or to permit fences in the front yard. And we did some research on neighboring jurisdictions, and some permit fences up to 3.5 feet.
3.5 feet, yeah.
Which is half a foot lower than what we've been seeing proposed. And that would be permitted by right without having the need to come for a variance. However, we would like to mention that the variance process does deter most residents from going for this. And if more residents do decide to construct a fence in their front yard, it is our belief that it will change the character and the feel of the village. And this is why our recommendation stands to leave the regulations as they are.
I have just a supplementary question on that. How do you think that it would change the character of the village, and what benefits are there to promoting this open yard space as opposed to fencing off the residences?
Yes, mostly for the experience of the pedestrian, for example, and not feeling that you're closing off the right-of-way, the public right-of-way, as you're walking next to these, especially the existing lots that already had legally non-conforming fences or grandfathered, as we also mentioned. You feel like you're walking next to it's just, it's not it doesn't feel, it's not a good
Exactly.
feeling for the pedestrian. And also, it gives a perception of of lack of security in the neighborhood. When you see that everyone needs to close off their yards as opposed to keeping it open, it gives a different perception, rather than thinking, oh, this is, this neighborhood is really safe because there's walls. It's the opposite. They need these walls to feel safe, so it gives the opposite feeling as you're driving or walking by the neighborhood. And it's just more, well, yes, those are the main reasons, I would say.
That makes complete sense to me. I do support everyone being able to do anything that is legally allowed in their own residence, but I do think when your enjoyment of your property starts infringing on like passerbys, we've heard from people with disabilities, small children that have had issues with hedges and fences that have been allowed to really run wild and infringe upon the public right-of-way. I do think that in that situation, that's not something that we can necessarily turn a blind eye to, and I would probably lean towards either keeping it as it is, and I appreciate staff would not be recommending to approve variances beyond what is currently allowed, or to not allow fences at all. Either one of those would be workable options for me. I would love to know what the other council members think about the issue. Vice Mayor?
I appreciate the analysis of the reason why we would want to maintain open front yards, and I fully agree with that. I do believe I'm in agreement with Chair Martin that leaving it as is, I think is fine with the caveat that you're explaining that variances would become for extreme or truly extenuating circumstances. I am of a mind that perhaps we should eliminate all permission for front fencing, walls, etc. And maybe the only exception to that would be someone who would want to refurbish, rehabilitate one of these coral or mason walls that
Already exist.
right, that already exist. Because I certainly believe the last time we met about this, Council Person Perella had said, look, once that front fence goes up, then the hedges go in right behind it, and then now, you're right back to square one in terms of losing control of what we had intended to maintain. So I probably would be in favor of eliminating confusion and doing away with the front allowance completely. And then if someone did want to refurbish, rehabilitate, their existing wall, that might be something that would be allowed as a variance to take place. But I certainly agree wholeheartedly that if we're going to be a gated community, then let's put gates at the entrances to the community. Let's not have individual gated properties throughout the village. It's outrageously uninviting, and I do actually think it causes people to think, okay, this is not a safe place for me to be. And so, like on my block, I just feel so lucky to be on the block I'm on. All the neighbors, we all know each other. Almost 24 hours a day, there's somebody keeping an eye on the street in one way or another. And a lot of that is because I can look out my window from my bedroom. I've got a desk set up right there, and like a standing desk, and so I can see up and down the block completely unobstructed, and it's nice. And it's better for my neighbors because I can help keep an eye on their property just as they can help keep an eye on mine. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and
Any other
exactly,
comments?
that's exactly the feeling. I'm sorry.
Councilman Perella?
Yes, that's exactly the feeling that we don't want to lose. The same thing goes with me on my street, which is at one point between 3 houses, they had 5 kids, and they were all, and even though we don't have kids, they'll go to our house to play with our dogs, and we run around up and down the street, and it's just nice. And it looks, for people that say, no, for the sake of my kids and whatever, I need to fence in the front yard and whatever, I have a sad case that I can tell you right now, and it happened to a very good friend of mine, on a Christmas day. They had a fence in front of the house. The 3-year-old ran out and got killed by a car. and they had a front fence. That was like 10 years ago, you know, and in Pembroke Pines. So, you know, is it really to protect the kids who, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. It's more, I think it's more to gain like that, you know, this is my property and this is what, you know, I'm allowed to use. But in reality, doesn't give, like you guys have been saying it, the security, you know, I don't think it goes with what we are.
Yeah,
And,
that was a morbid illustration, but yeah, point well taken, that
Yes.
definitely there are more cons than pros in this,
Yes.
and that 3-foot fence might not be as effective
Yeah.
as you would think. Any other comments on that, Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Only thing I really just want to say is, well, I have a question first of all. Camilla, by the time, so they have to go into the front office and fill out the sheet and pay for the variance, then it comes to you guys after that?
It comes to us first, and once it's complete, then they come to Village Hall to.
Then they go to Village Hall to pay. The only thing that I would suggest is just kind of like a public, you know, consideration type of PSA from you guys, Juan and Camilla, because they come to you guys first. You guys can tell them when they're doing this for these, you know, these front fences, just tell them, like, look, you guys can go forward through with this process, but just know that for these, we recommend non-approval. You know, you can still go for it if you want to, but just know that we recommend non-approval for this particular variance. Because I don't want people, because variances are how much, Madam Manager? What's they run from about 700 up. So to not tell them, you know, we usually don't recommend approval, and they're coming thinking like, oh, we're just doing a variance. You know, they recommend, you know, they pass variances all the time, and then they get here, and it's like, oh, we don't recommend approval, and then we hear that, and we're like, oh, okay, well, you know, not approved, and they're like, well, I just paid 700. How come y'all didn't tell me you don't recommend approval? You know, so I think just maybe some type of communication when this item particularly, you know, comes through you guys, Plurserbia at first, and just say, hey, you guys can go through with this. You know, the council at the end has discretion. The committee and the council has discretion if they want to pass it through. But just understand, on our part, we don't recommend approval on these items.
So, point definitely well taken. And what we're trying to do is go through and find these items where variances are frequently requested, identify them, try to pinpoint what the will of the council is, so that we can give people more accurate guidance on these items. But the nature of the variance is that you know that you might or might not get it, like you're rolling the dice on this. So we couldn't tell them, even though we say now, hey, our inclination is not to do this thing. We don't know if there's going to be a situation where we are going to grant it. So I think essentially, if you're applying for this variance, you kind of know that you're rolling the dice. But we can do an informational once we get a handle on all of the items that we're going to target, all of the language that we're cleaning up, and kind of send it out to everyone in some sort of fashion, maybe through a QR reader, so we don't necessarily have to print and incur any costs, just to let them know where we stand or how our stance has changed on certain items. But for me, personally, I would lean towards getting rid of all of the fencing in the front, and then having to seek a variance if you do want to do something differently. Councilman Lightfoot Ward, any comments on that before I ask if we have a motion?
It kind of takes away from the neighborhood, and that's not just coming from a personal perspective, that's coming from time infinitum when I once was. And fences in the front yard don't seem to do much except distort the fact that I don't want to be bothered. Basically, I don't want to be bothered. Don't come to my house, don't do anything. We're not that type of village. So no, I would not vote to have fencing in the front yard. I just wouldn't. And I'm pretty private. Well, my yard looks real good without a fence.
It's beautiful. It's very inviting.
Can you imagine a corner lot with a fence? I'm on a corner lot. really don't want any sidewalks. They planted the trees and made a whole lot of difference in my life. So, no, I would say, yeah, let's just not even include it.
Yeah, it sounds good. I can't imagine a corner lot with a fence, and that is a very dangerous intersection that everybody tries to navigate. So that's another good reason not to have fencing. But do we have a motion to instruct staff to change the language in that way?
I would move to instruct staff to change the language of the ordinance to prohibit fences of any height in the front.
I'll second that motion.
Perfect. Madam Clerk?
Roll call. Member Lightfoot Ward. Member Nickerson.
No.
Member Urban.
Yes.
Vice Chair Perella.
Yes.
Chair Martin.
Yes.
4 yes, 1 no. Motion passes to full council.
All right, so we're back around to G2. Do we have the applicant for 160 Northeast 89th Street in attendance? Going once, going twice. They're not here. I don't know. I don't know if they would be able to get here. All right. Alas, we'll have to wait for our applicants at 160 Northeast 89th Street for the next Planning and Zoning Committee meeting, which also means that we are moving on to subsection H, which is the last good and welfare of the evening. Does anyone else have a comment, question, concern? Hearing none, I will move along to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, awesome. I am going to adjourn the October 25th Planning and Zoning Committee meeting at 6:28 p.m. Have a good night, guys.